Okay, we will get started. So we're gonna start in Virasana or Hero's Pose, kind of like we did last week. I'm gonna set these off to the side, but you guys are welcome to help yourself to them at the end of class or before we transition into the meditational part. So in Virasana, Hero's Pose, my setup has the block for underneath the hips, and then I'll be using 2 blankets to support underneath the shins today. I have the blankets in front of the shins. I'm gonna turn this around to show you from behind though, but essentially you'll be mirroring me once we go into this. So just a view from the back. I'm gonna start kneeling on these blankets here, and my feet are actually hanging off, so that rolled edge is supporting my ankle. Knees come together, and my heels are a little bit wider than the hips. Essentially, as I sit down, I wanna sit between my heels. I'm gonna place a block underneath my hips here, and you can always add some height if there's any tension on the knees. So knees are together, heels are just outside the hips here. And we'll take a moment to spread the toes and really line up the middle toe or that third toe in with the very center of the heel. This will help keep the outer ankle a little bit longer and not put so much pressure on the ankle joint in general. So this here is Virasana. You can see with the blankets just helps lift the shins so that it's not as heavy of a extension in the fronts of the ankles. If you have any pain in the knees, you would add more height underneath the hips. If you have any pain in the ankles, we would just add a little bit more height underneath the shins. Any questions coming up with Virasana? Okay, switch back around. So as you take a few breaths here, bringing your attention to your body, notice if there's any tension in the legs or the knees, if any more support is needed. As you let the elbows hang to the floor with the hands resting on the thighs, allow your eyes to soften, face to soften, tuning into your breath. Notice if there's any tension or restriction anywhere in your body. As you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, notice how your breath affects your body. As you exhale, let go of any gripping in the tops of the shoulders, sides of the neck. Release any tension in the jaw or the forehead. On your next inhale, bring your hands together. As the palms rest against each other, you'll feel your wrists resting at the base of the rib cage. With that gentle pressure of the hands, try to roll the tops of your shoulders back and down the spine. As you inhale, lift the chest up towards the ceiling. Feel that in general, the breath can start to add some lift and length to the spine all the way up through the crown of the head. We'll start class today by chanting 3 Oms together as a group. Let's start with an inhale. Notice if any tension rose, and see if you can let it go. Keeping the chest lifting at the end of your next exhale. And bring your chest or your chin to your chest, surrendering the head to the heart, intellect to intuition. And slowly bring your hands down to the thighs, lift your head, and open the eyes. We're going to work on some shoulder mobility stuff today. And so to get started, we'll do a couple shoulder rolls even here in Virasana. You make some circles with your shoulders. Notice if there's any tension anywhere specifically. Notice if there's any expansion anywhere specifically. Let's see if you can create that full rotation of the shoulder joint. Very dramatically lifting the shoulders up, forward, down, and back. Whichever direction you're rolling them now, go ahead and switch directions. And while you do this, notice if there's any sticky points or clicking. All that kind of stuff can be quite normal. Just be aware. It's okay to feel some stretchiness and maybe even some achiness come up, but if you feel any sharpness, become aware and be mindful of all of that. Now we're going to place our hands on our shoulders. We're going to do a little practice with our elbows. So we'll start by taking the elbows forward and touching them, and then pulling them apart and seeing if you can pull the shoulders back, almost like you're trying to squeeze the elbows together behind you. And then back forward, back, one more time, shoulders forward, elbows forward, and then back. And as you bring them forward this next time, we're actually gonna turn them in opposite directions and create circles, like we're trying to draw giant circles with our elbows. This becomes a little bit of a mind game because we're crossing in the middle here and then lifting them apart, back in the middle, spreading them in opposite directions. And then this next time, once they meet in the middle, we're going to do the opposite elbow that lifts and creating those rotations. Good. Really trying to get that full opening of the shoulders as you wrap that elbow around. And then you can bring the elbows together and rest the hands. Go ahead and shake the elbows just to create a sense of weight. Right? As you kind of shake the elbows slightly down to the floor, you can feel a little bit of gravity starting to pull that arm down, soften the shoulders. Very nice. Then we'll go ahead and come forward. As you bring your weight to your hands, you can take one foot back at a time, pressing through the heel with the toes curled under. Stretch the ankle out, open the back of the knee, and then we'll switch sides. Taking some time coming out of Virasana here. Care for the ankles and knees. And then you can come forward and we'll clear our mats off. But have two blocks. We're going to set our blocks up for something called stump pose. And so for today, we'll have our blocks in a T position on the medium height. So our blocks have 3 different heights. You can have it on the low height, medium height, or high height. Today we're going to place both the blocks in the medium heights just to start here. And it'll be shaped kind of like a T. There's a little bit of space between the top block and that block that's kind of perpendicular to that top block. I'm going to just show really briefly so you kind of know where the blocks are positioned in relation to our body and where we're going, so you don't have to look up here a bunch while we're practicing. So you can just watch for a moment. I'm going to start with my hands near my blocks, and I like to place my thumbs right up against the end of my block here so I know where I am in space. And I want that edge of the block that's closest to me to touch right near the base of my shoulder blades. So this is a little bit higher than the base of the rib cage, but I can come down and I can feel, okay, it's a little bit higher on my back. And as you can see from the side, it's a little bit closer to my armpit than my lower rib cage, which is down here. And then I can grab my other block, and you can choose to have it on that low setting, or you can go ahead and raise it up to that high setting here. We'll take a few breaths in this position, and then we'll reach the arms up and overhead. Once we bring the arms back down, we'll do a couple of snow angels where we're just dragging the hands along the floor and taking them up and overhead from our sides. And then we'll come back down, take a few breaths, just relaxing as much as possible with blocks digging in our back. And then to come up, there is a little bit of a support you'll need with the elbows, and then you can bring the hands underneath you and push yourself up to sit. Okay? Any questions on stump pose? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's okay. I understand completely. Sometimes it's behind me, so I don't see it. So yeah. So you'll start sitting, and you can bring your hands near that block that's closest to you. And as you lean back, see if you can feel it quite high on your upper back. It'll feel a little bit closer to your armpits, more than it will feel in relation to your belly button. And so Mary, you can even adjust that a little bit more. Come on in, Gray. So you'll, yeah, exactly, scoot that block up, good. And then as you lay back, you can adjust that block that's underneath your head, having it either on that same medium height, which is gonna open up the base of the neck a little bit more. But if you feel any tension that's coming up in the shoulders or the back of the neck, go ahead and lift the height of that block that's underneath your head. So you can decide what's best for you today. And remember, this is something you can always adjust in your practice. You want me to help you out, Katie? You want to try this? Let's see.
Yeah, that's
okay, yeah. Just taking a few breaths here. I'm gonna shift this block for you. And then go ahead and try that. Yeah, and see if you can get that edge of the block right here. Yeah. So even scoot down a little bit more. There you go. And looks like everyone's straightened their legs, but if you go ahead and bend your knees one more time, and as you press your feet down, try to scoop your tailbone towards your heels. And so you're not necessarily using your hands, but you can press your feet down and it'll make your hips a little bit lighter off the floor. And as you take a nice deep exhale, tucking the tailbone down towards the heels just to create some extension and length in the low back. And then straightening your legs out one at a time. You can lift your toes, scrub your heels away from you. Feel that the low back is wrapping the buttocks down to the heels. So the whole lower back of the body moving down to the heels here. You take a nice inhale. Try to fill the upper outer corners of the chest. And with your breath, notice if there's any areas that feel tension or restriction. Acknowledge any places that feel open or long. Softening any gripping in the face or the eyes. And on your next inhale, you'll reach your arms in line with your gaze, so fingertips up towards the ceiling to start. As you press your heels down, tuck your tailbone towards your heels, reach your arms up and overhead. Palms facing the floor. So really try to turn your thumb or pinky side of your hand down to the floor. There you go, Mary. Lengthening the side waist. And then you'll bring your hands back next to your hips. Just resting the hands on the floor for a moment. The palms facing the ceiling. And we'll move into making some snow angels here. We'll call them yoga angels. And so you'll keep your hands on the floor, or attempt to, and slide your arms up and overhead, And like you're creating that snow angel. It's okay if the arms lift off the floor. But once your hands get above your shoulders, try to turn your inner upper arm down to the floor, palms to the floor. Now we're creating an internal rotation with our upper arm or our humerus bone in that shoulder joint. Try to keep the arms straight, and then you'll bring your hands back alongside the hips, resting on the floor, palms facing the ceiling. We'll do this 2 more times. So as you slide your hands up alongside you, turn the palms down to the floor, arms nice and straight. Nice deep breaths. Yeah, pinkies go up towards the ceiling to start, but then see if you can even turn the palms deeper towards the floor with the arms straight. So really trying to keep that upper inner arm turning down to the floor. And then bringing the hands back down along to those sides, palms facing the ceiling. Last yoga angel. Extending the arms out and up, turning the inner arm down to the floor. Maybe even the palms come together here this time. And as you press the palms together, turn the inner arms down. Heels press down as your tailbone tucks to your heels. And then bringing the hands back down to the sides. And just absorbing the position of your body here as you lay on the blocks. Taking nice deep inhales and exhales. Notice any particular sensations in your body that are standing out. And then you'll slowly bend your knees, and to come up, you'll place your elbows underneath you so you can kind of shift your weight onto your elbows. And then one arm at a time, you can press yourself up. So you might lean to the side, bring in a hand underneath you, and then come up to sit. And then you'll clear your mat off and grab a strap. So today is where that longer strap will definitely come in hand as we progress through the class. We'll make whatever you have work. Some people were asking me what size strap. They have a 6, an 8, and a 10 foot. And you'll see here this in a little bit, you'll see why the longer one could be of benefit. So let's go ahead and come up to stand. We'll stand with our feet a little bit wider than hip width. You'll have your strap in your hand. Toes will point forward and in slightly, trying to line up that middle toe or that third toe with the very center of your heel. And you'll have the strap out in front of you. We're going to do a couple of arm rotations with the strap. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see for a moment. I'll just demonstrate, and then we'll go ahead and do a few of these together. So I'm going to take my strap forward and up above me. And what I'm doing is I'm actually pulling taut on the strap. So I'm almost trying to pull my hands away from each other. I'm going to take my arms all the way back and down to my hips, basically. And then we'll bring the arms all the way up and back. Now, if you get to a point where you're like, yeah, my arms are not going anywhere else, just try to slide the hands away from each other a little bit more. Give that shoulder joint some more space. And then again, I'm really focusing on pulling the strap ends away from one another as we do this, okay? Any questions coming up with this? All right, let's go ahead and practice. So you'll start by pulling the strap ends away from each other, taking the arms up and overhead, and notice if you get to a point where it's not going back anymore, you can go ahead and add some space, and hands come back down, and then a little bit of strength needed in the upper body there to bring the strap back up and over. Nice deep breaths. We'll do this 3 more times. You can do this at your own pace. You take some nice deep inhales and exhales. Try to draw the belly button in towards the spine. Tuck your tailbone down to the heels. And feel as though you can lift through the crown of your head. So there's still that length in the spine, even as you do this movement here in your shoulders. 1 more time. Notice what sensations are coming up for you. And then once the arms come back and forward, you can go ahead and relax the arms and just observe. Observe, where are you feeling the most sensation? Is there any sharpness that you should be aware of? There's a little bit of a dull ache. That tends to be pretty common. That's okay. Nice. Then you can go ahead and set your strap down. We'll come right back to that. But now we're going to move to some wall space, and you will need a little bit of a taller wall. So go ahead and come watch from this area here. And I'll show you, we're going to place our arms in a couple different positions in relationship to the wall. So then once we're all there, you don't have to worry about looking at me. You kind of know where we're headed. So I'm going to start with my wrist as high as my shoulder here. And as I press my hand into the wall, I'm going to try and do some of those shoulder rotations that we were practicing earlier. Now, ultimately, I want to get to a point where I can start to pull that shoulder blade onto my spine. So this is the area you want to be looking at for a moment here. Initially, when I start, you might see that shoulder blade is spreading away from the spine. I'm going to use that pressure in my hand, that turn of my inner arm up to draw that shoulder blade in tight to the spine. And then we'll go ahead and release. We'll do the other side. And then once we return to this first side, I'm going to stand a little bit closer to the wall, and I'm going to take my hand back about as high as my hip here. And I'm not totally against the wall. There is a couple inches of space between my shoulder and the wall here. And as I press my arm down, I'm turning my inner arm up and away towards the wall and back towards behind me. Again, noticing that shoulder as I go from this position where there's more space between the shoulder blade and my spine versus using my hand to press into the wall, rolling my shoulder back to get a little bit more of that openness in what we call the armpit chest. So here's that upper outer corner of the chest area. And then we'll just relax before coming into mountain pose, Tadasana. Ready? Are there any questions coming up with this? I like to call it microsurgery. This is one of the best shoulder practices. If you ever get any pain, tension in your shoulders, neck, this is a great one to go to for that. All right, let's go ahead and practice. So you got all this wall space here. There's a couple of spaces around the room you can see that are good for the tall wall. The window won't work for this. And you'll start with your right hand up against the wall. And so you'll spread those fingers, have your wrist in line with your shoulder. Do you have enough room over there? Maybe, okay. And then you can go ahead and place your left hand on your hip. Draw that left elbow back to the wall behind you. So even though that left shoulder isn't participating as directly, we still want it to be a little bit more mindful. And now just observe as you take a few breaths in and you really breathe into that right shoulder. Notice what's happening and see if you can identify the front of the shoulder, the back of the shoulder, top of the shoulder, and the armpit. That whole shoulder joint, it's pretty dynamic. And as you press your hand into the wall, we're going to do a couple shoulder rolls, just like we did in the beginning of class. So as you roll your shoulder up, forward, down, and back, up, forward, down, and back. And then once you do it a third time, you can go ahead and switch directions. Up, back, down, and forward. And now we'll return to a neutral place. There should be a little bit more sensitivity. And as you press your hand into the wall, give a little bend to your elbow and try and turn your inner arm up towards the ceiling. Like that pit of your elbow is trying to move back to the wall behind you. And notice what's happening in that right shoulder. Can you squeeze your right shoulder blade into your spine? So now the upper back has to become a little bit more active here. And see if you can draw that whole shoulder into the spine here. You feel that shifting? Yeah. Smooth, steady inhale, smooth, steady exhale. As you tuck your tailbone down to your heels, lift the chest up. And then you can bring your hand down to your side and just observe for a moment. And we'll switch sides. So now you'll take your left hand to the wall, right hand on the hip. That wrist is in line with your shoulders as the fingers are spread nice and far apart. And as you press your hand into the wall there, go ahead and do a couple of shoulder rolls. We'll do 3 in each direction. So taking the shoulder up, forward, down and back, up, forward, down and back. After you've done your third, you can go into the opposite direction. And then you'll come back to a neutral place. And as you take a few breaths, try to identify the front of the shoulder joint, back of the shoulder joint, top of the shoulder, and then even that armpit. And now as you bend your elbow a little bit and press into the wall, try to turn your inner arm up towards the ceiling. And as that hand presses, squeeze the shoulder blade into your spine. It almost feels like a tucking sensation with that shoulder blade. You'll also feel the front of the shoulder, that armpit chest that I mentioned, becomes quite broad. Sometimes I feel like I need lotion across my collarbones. And then notice if there's any tension in the tops of the shoulders that you can start to release. Can those tops of the shoulders even start to move down towards the floor? And then you'll bring your hand down to your side and just observe. What are those actions? What is that impression that's left after doing that practice? We'll go ahead and switch to the first side now. Now we're going to move into placing that hand behind us in line with the hip. The thumb points away from you. So you'll scoot a little bit closer to the wall this time. There's still going to be about 2 to 3 inches of space between the wall and your shoulder. And then notice how you're standing. How are the feet? Can you stand nice and straight? And as you place your left hand on your hip, notice what's happening here in the chest. Is your chest dramatically turning towards the wall? Or can you roll those shoulders back and also pull the shoulders away from the ears? The inner edges of the shoulder blades that are along the spine start to pull down towards the hips. So it'll help create a little bit of space in the neck, the shoulders. And as you gently press your palm into the wall, think about turning your inner arm up towards the ceiling. This is an external rotation of the humerus bone, or that upper arm bone. Notice how that whole front of the shoulder, armpit, chest starts to open. You might feel that there is some effort and contraction and muscularization in the upper back, and that's all beneficial. During these next few breaths, just observe what your inhale and exhale are doing in the pose. Where are you feeling length? Where are you feeling shortness? And then you can go ahead and release that hand down next to your side and just take a moment to observe. Observe and absorb that impression with that action that left for you. And then we'll go ahead and switch to the last side now. The second side, left hand will come to the wall. You can observe how your feet are positioned. Right hand comes on the hip. And so really the rest of the body is in our mountain pose here. It's just that left hand that's behind us, about hip height. As you take a nice deep exhale, belly button into the spine. When we move into back bends, we start to challenge a little bit of the mobility in our spine. And the most mobile part of our spine is our lumbar spine, which is that middle back that's right below our rib cage. One of the least mobile areas is the thoracic spine, which is the area of the spine that's near the rib, that's in the rib cage. And we really want to try and see if we can move that thoracic spine. So rather than the middle back or the belly, moving forward to get the shoulders back, See if you can tuck your tailbone, almost like you're trying to round your low back here. And with that hand behind you, we're really trying to get that action in the upper back. Nice, in the thoracic spine. Very good. So the hand gently presses into the wall, inner arm turns up towards the ceiling. Taking a few breaths here. Notice what's happening in that left shoulder as you breathe. Where are you feeling some length? Where are you feeling some tension? And through all of this, can you start to pull the shoulders away from the ears? And then you'll stand in Tadasana, mountain pose, just absorbing. Just feeling the impression that that posture left for you. And you can go ahead and grab your strap, go back to your mat here. It's pretty amazing how that can be pretty sensational. Like, call that a cellular impression. You can pretty dramatically feel, it still afterwards. So we're gonna practice something called a strap jacket. And I'm gonna demonstrate, and you may or may not need someone to help get this set up on you. But I'm gonna start by taking my strap and I'm holding the ends, and then I have it across my upper back. And I'm gonna place each end of the strap around the front of my collarbone. So our shoulder joint, rotator cuff, you can kind of feel if you poke around, you can feel where that humerus bone or that upper arm bone connects into the joint here. We really want this strap to be a little bit closer to the collarbone side of that joint. So it's not pulling on the front of the rotator cuff or the front of the shoulder specifically. And so you can see I have these tail ends that have been wrapped up around here. And you can see also that that strap is very high on my back. It's right near the base of my shoulder blades here. Now this is where you may or may not need someone to help, is we want to tuck those straps underneath the strap that's across the back, and I want to cross them. So you can see that the strap over my right shoulder is actually going to be pulled over to the left. I'm going to take that strap that's over my left shoulder, pull it underneath, and I'm going to try and pull it off to the right here. Now see, this isn't even long enough. Sometimes if you get the long ones, you can wrap it around and it'll hold itself. But either way, you can just hold on to the ends here, pull them nice and tight, and you can kind of see we're now kind of mimicking a little bit of what we were just practicing at the wall. This is another great tool if you happen to feel some shoulder and neck tension. Now you can pull the straps forward, right? And that kind of gets the shoulders rolling back. But now try and pull the straps down and see if you can use that downward momentum to actually stretch the tops of the shoulders away from the ears. You should feel a little bit of length. And then bring your chin forward and down towards the chest. And as you take a nice deep inhale and exhale here, see if there's any gripping or tension that you can let go of. You need any help, Sky? Okay. Oh, is that what it is? No, I think it could be the material. See if, go ahead and pull tight. Oh. Yeah, it could be just the material. That's okay. So main thing with this is just noticing that there's not so much tension on that front of the rotator cuff. You really want to get this whole chest opening, the collarbones really doing most of this work, as opposed to overstretching the front of the rotator cuff to get the shoulders back. So a little shoulder health tip. Okay, now we're gonna come into downward facing dog. So you're gonna have to let go of your strap ends, unfortunately, but we're gonna keep it on. We're gonna come down to our hands and knees, downward facing dog, curling the toes under, lifting the hips up, Notice what's changing, what's happening here. Good job, you got it. Inner arms turn forward, outer arms turn towards the floor. And as you press your hands down, lift your hips up. Now what's happening in that shoulder joint? Lovely. Press your chest down to the floor, but let it be from the action of your shoulders here. You can feel that strap across the base of your shoulder blades. And that's what we want to drive down to the floor. Not necessarily the armpit. Beautiful. Wow, that strap jacket is a miracle worker. And then come down to rest. Take the knees wide, toes together. So downward facing hero's pose. You can rest the arms in the head. We're gonna keep the strap jacket on because we're gonna practice downward facing dog one more time here. And even here in this position, notice what that impression is of the strap jacket. How is that adjusting your shoulders and the shoulder joint? And then we'll come back up into downward facing dog. So hands are slightly forward from the shoulders, knees are slightly back from the hips, curling the toes under, lifting the hips up. As you strongly turn your inner arms up to the wall in front of you, pull the shoulders away from the ears and drive those bottom tips of the shoulder blades through the chest to the floor. Inner arms wrap up, inner arms wrapping up. Now for a moment, go ahead and look at your elbows. See that crease of your elbow, the bend of the elbow? See if you can turn that to the entrance to the room. Little bend in the elbow will help do this. Huh? You can't hold. A little bend in the elbow, trying to turn that pit of the elbow towards the front of the room. Yes, and then come down to rest. Sit back on the heels or just come to a position that's comfortable where you can relax the arms and just absorb. As you take a few breaths here, what sensations stood out to you most in that downward facing dog? You can go ahead and take the strap jacket off, set it off to the side. And then you can watch up here for a moment. So we're gonna use our blocks and our strap. Now that we've done the strap jacket, we're gonna take our strap and put a loop in it. If you have any trouble doing this, I can give some more direction. But once you have a loop in your strap, we want to have the loop wide enough so that when our upper arms are strapped together, our elbows are about shoulder width apart. Sometimes it's hard to tell that distance from our viewpoint, but we want that humerus bone, that upper arm bone to really be in line with the shoulder joint. Upper arm strapped. Yep, elbow in line with the shoulder. Upper arm right above the elbow, so not super high on the shoulder, just above the elbow there. So yours could be pulled a little bit tighter, Gray. Just a little bit. Nothing's changed. Here, I'll switch you, or I'll teach you. So, let me undo mine. Yeah, exactly. So once you pull it through both of them, you're gonna loop it back and it'll go towards the farther one. Yes. Your arms are not crooked. I think your elbows, your inner elbow is a little longer, but that's okay. Yeah, and that can be loosened a little bit. But yep, you got it tied. So I'm going to turn my mat just so for demonstrating. You can keep your mat where they're at. So you may need 1 or 2 blocks, and I'll show you the difference here. So we're gonna practice a pose called Pincha Mayurasana. I think some people, bless you, know it as dolphin pose. It translates into feather pose. But we want our elbows to be on the floor. Palms are gonna come onto the sides of the blocks. And again, I have my elbows underneath my shoulders, wrists are in line here with my elbows. Now you can notice for me, in my shoulders, if I just have 1 block, my wrists are a little bit closer than my actual shoulders are, right? So that's where I'm gonna add my extra block. And then we'll come up, Pincha Mayurasana, taking a few breaths here. We'll come down and rest. Second time we come up, feet come together. We're lifting 1 leg up behind us, and then we'll switch sides. So if you need to rest in between, absolutely an option. And then we'll come down, sit back on the heels, and just relax. Okay? Any questions on Pincha Mayurasana? Okay. Yeah, peacock feather pose. All right. So you can go ahead and test out your blocks. Go ahead and see if 1 block is good enough for you, or if having the double block setup is helpful. Palms will be pressing on the block. Make sure that that base of your palm near the wrist is supported. Huh? Yeah, that looks good. And elbows under the shoulders. Now take a few breaths here, and you don't have the strap jacket on anymore, but what would the actions be if you did have that strap jacket on still? And go ahead and curl your toes under, lift your hips up. The elbows squeeze in. You're looking between your elbows. Elbows press down, hips lift up. Try to lift your shoulders up away from the floor and come down to rest. All right, are there any questions on Pincha Mayurasana, peacock feather pose? Okay, we're gonna come back into it. This time, we're gonna do Ekapada, so 1 foot. So you're gonna curl your toes under, lift your hips up, feet come together, and you're gonna lift 1 leg at a time. Go ahead and lift your left leg up, or yeah, you choose, go ahead, you choose. Lift a leg up, gaze between the elbows as you press your elbows down, lift your hips, lift through that lifted heel, and then switch. Feet together, lifting the other leg, pressing the elbows down, lifting the shoulders, lifting that other heel up, and then come down to rest. So as you come down to rest, you'll sit back on the heels, sit upright. So sometimes when the head is below the heart, we'll rest with the head down. There are other poses where you'll come up and you'll actually be upright, and Pincha Mayurasana is one of those poses. Okay, how's everybody feeling with Pincha Mayurasana? Okay, so it'd be silly for me not to provide the option to try the next phase of this pose. We're gonna practice up against the wall. You may or may not kick up into the full inversion today, but I wanna give it an option for you guys because there are a few of you that are most likely gonna be able to do that. So you'll fold your mat in half, and we're gonna take this setup up against the wall. So go ahead and find some space up against the wall, and then I'll demonstrate. And if today's not your day with it, then yes, there's a wall over there. Okay, you're welcome to stay in the center of the room. There's plenty of room up here in the front of the room. I have to give the option though. Yeah. It's worth trying. So and there's things to consider, right? So it's not like you're just going in it haphazardly. Yes, absolutely. So once you're all set up, go ahead and come watch from the sides. Like I said, there's a couple of things that you want to consider before you go up into this inversion. Forearm balance, Pincha Mayurasana, peacock feather pose. So number one, if I'm coming up in this position here and my shoulders are really feeling heavy forward, that's not gonna do. I really have to get that drive of my shoulder blades in towards my chest. And I have to be able to maintain that the whole time as I walk my feet forward. I'm gonna lift one leg and kick up. Forearm balance. Might even feel like you can pull your heels away, come down, again, sitting on the heels to rest. And you can try this a couple of times if you're having a hard time holding. Don't focus on holding for any extended length of time if you get up. We're really trying to practice kicking the legs up, keeping the shoulders active, okay? Yeah. You watch a pregnant woman do some inversions. That sounds good. Yeah, use your discretion. Maybe not today, you know, but not never. So my hands, my fingers are straight, so my blocks are not all the way up against the wall. I want that heel of the palm holding and squeezing the block, and my fingers are too long, so they jam into the wall. So don't worry about block against the wall. Focus more on using the blocks as a spacer. So whenever you're ready, you can lift the hips up, press the outer wrist down, press the elbow down. No, you're gonna keep your face lifted. Shoulders, focus on the shoulders. Gaze will be between the elbows. Yep. Outer wrist presses down, elbow presses down. What's happening in the upper back there? Can you drive those shoulder blades through the chest and then walk your feet towards your shoulders? You're gonna lift one leg up. Did the shoulders collapse? Big question here. If they did not, you can go ahead and try and kick up. Big kick, good job. Awesome, Greg, good job. And then you can go ahead and try again with the other side. So go ahead and try 3 or 4 times kicking up. Notice what's happening here. Elbows press down, shoulders lift the whole side waist up. And you're really launching your foot to the wall here. Don't be afraid to kick a hole in the wall. You kind of got to get that momentum. Nice, good try. Good catch. Good catch. And then come down to rest. Go ahead and look at the wall here for a moment. Taking a few breaths. So we can try one more time, or you're in regular Pincha Mayurasana. Getting up, I can't say that I have a quick fix for you other than practice. What I can tell you though, is that there's something to be said about lifting up instead of just trying to go straight back to the wall. So if you're gonna try again, you can come watch from the sides, or if you wanna just note this for your inversion practice. If I'm just trying to go to the wall here, I mean, I can get there ultimately, but really what I want is I'm trying to keep that whole leg straight. And as I keep that whole leg straight, it's really lifting the front of my body up, which is what has to lift in order to get me all the way. Versus, right? Keeping that leg straight, swinging it up, and the other one comes. Another thing I'm seeing is this, and this standing leg isn't joining with. I'm swinging that top leg, bottom comes with, okay? All right, one more time, or you can rest if your shoulders are feeling it. Sure. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's see what's going on. That's okay. So whenever you're ready, you can curl the toes under, lift the hips up. Yeah. And I think, yeah, and I think really we're trying to get some of this a little bit more mobile, and I can just see this is just a little bit tight, you know, and I think that that's what's going on, and it's time and practice. Yeah. Good job, Gray. Okay, Sky, try one more time and bring that bottom leg with you. Bring it with, yes, good job. And then rest. Good job. Huh? Big difference, huh? Very good. Okay, so we're gonna set the blocks aside. We're gonna set the strap aside. We're gonna move on to our next pose. This one is Shirshasana. So we're still gonna use the wall as a reference here. If you're not going upside down, you don't need to worry about being near the wall. But if you were just near the wall and you were trying to go upside down, you can stay there, okay? I'm just gonna show the initial practice, what's happening in the arms, and then we'll do together as a group. Those who wanna try and go up into the inversion, we'll try that second or third time. So our next pose is Shirshasana, headstand. The arms are just a little bit different. So is our center of gravity. Shoulder work, all the same, okay? I'm gonna lace the fingers together, bringing my outer wrists and elbows down to the floor, same space between the elbows here. This time, what's different is that the top of my head is actually coming down. I'm gonna loosen my ponytail here. Crown of the head is coming down between the palms of my hands. Locking the feet in, and we'll be here. Notice if this is happening and see if you can really get that lift of the shoulders. If that's too much, maybe you're just here today, okay? Are there any questions on Shirshasana? We're just gonna practice this arm setup first. All right, so you'll lace your fingers together, bringing the outer wrists down, elbows down. Elbows are shoulder width apart here. And now to start, you're gonna curl your toes under and lift your hips up. Your head is lifted at this point in time. Now you're gonna take the top of your head, and as you walk your feet towards your hands, very top of the head comes between the heels of your palms. So there is a little bit of space between the heels of the palms there. Nice, and then go ahead and come down to rest. And this time with this pose, you can start resting the head on the floor. So one thing that we like to do for stability purposes is we like to grip the hands together, kind of like you're holding hands, right? But there is a little bit of space between the wrists. And so there's a little bit more pressure on the outer palm, on the outer wrist when we do this to hold stability. You can leave your thumbs pointing up towards the ceiling here because we do want the palms to be a little bit more open. All right, let's try one more time. Curling the toes under, you can walk your feet in, bring the top of your head to your hands. Notice what's happening in the shoulders. Even though your head is down, can you lift those shoulders up? And Gray, you can bring your elbows in. Yeah, there you go. Even a little bit more. Yeah. Elbows squeeze. Yep. Shoulders lift. Nice, Cindy. And then come down to rest. So you immediately, because we're dropping our weight, you can feel the difference between the last pose and this pose, right? Because you're dropping your weight now beyond your shoulder joint. It's now over your wrists, which causes your upper arms, they need to be stronger than peacock feather pose, just because you don't have that joint supporting underneath you. So if you're feeling that shoulder is just, or the upper arm really, is really taxed for strength, that's where you're gonna feel your shoulders start to drop to the floor. However, if you can get that downward pressure to lift that arm up, you're gonna feel it a lot in your upper arms, then it could be an opportunity to practice headstand. Shirshasana, headstand, this is known as the king of all poses. Wonderful pose for energy. It took me years to even get up into. So don't feel any pressure whatsoever to get into an inversion today with this. But for those that are ready for the inversion, I want you to come watch from the sides. even if you're not going up today, just to have some mental notes of, you know, what to watch for. So when I'm using the wall, I have just a hair of space between my knuckles and the wall here. Elbows are underneath the shoulders. If your elbows are farther out, this is going to be harder to do the pose. So you almost want to err on the side of having the shoulders or the elbows in more. Once I curl my toes under, head comes down to the floor. Now, if you feel your neck compressing, shoulders dropping behind you, don't worry about kicking up. We have to be able to keep our awareness in our shoulders even as we come all the way up here. So I'm not dropping, nor am I doing this. Keeping the tailbone tucking, shoulders lifting, Shirshasana. I'm taking my feet hip width apart just because I'm pregnant, but ultimately you will practice with the feet together. And then coming down one leg at a time, this pose, head rests on the floor. Okay? Are there any questions? All right, so you can use your own discretion. If you want to practice headstand setup, you can. If you felt more benefit for your shoulders, your body in the last pose, the forearm balance pose, you can go ahead and practice that. I just want to give the opportunity for Shirshasana. Just a hair. You'll start with it just slightly away because it'll move. So as you press your outer wrist down, elbows down, you can place your head on the floor, curl your toes under, lift your hips up, lift the shoulders up. Even though you're walking your feet towards your face, the shoulders are lifting away from the wall. Just take one leg up at a time. Get those shoulders away from the wall, Gray. Lift the, yes. Shoulders up, 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 up. And then now if you're trying to kick up, go ahead and kick up. Same as before, swinging the legs up and overhead, but it comes from that downward stability. And then you'll come down to rest. Nice, Mary, good job. Way to go. Shoulders lifting. Take a nice deep exhale, belly button into the spine. Deep tuck of the tailbone, up, 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 up. Good, you can go ahead and come down, and then next time bringing your hands a little bit closer to the wall. You were able to get up, it is a little bit more of a back bend than the traditional pose. Yeah, nice job, very good. Just taking a few breaths here. Often that can be pretty energizing pose. But now we're gonna move on. So we're gonna practice Chatushpadasana, four-footed pose, or we'll set up for shoulder stand. So you guys may remember Chatushpadasana, this pose here. This time we're gonna practice with our legs up the wall in preparation for shoulder stand. So again, using your own discretion as to which is best for you. If you are practicing against the wall, I'm gonna shift over here because I think it'll be easier for the camera to see, the other class that's online to see. We're gonna have two blankets and they're gonna be folded in this position here. So I think when you grab them off the shelf, they're kind of folded in half like that. So you'll unfold them once, stack the rolled edge of the blanket, and you're gonna have your mat folded in half, and we'll stack those blankets on the edge of the mat. I'm gonna take the end of my mat and bring it up the blanket stack most of the way. I have about, what is that, 5 inches, 6 inches of space from the rolled edge to the edge of the mat. The purpose of this posture, or I mean this setup for this posture, is the shoulders are gonna be on the blankets, but the elbows are gonna use the resistance of the sticky mat. So that's why we have that little spacer there. If you're practicing Chatushpadasana, you'll still set up like this. You just won't have to worry about taking your feet all the way up the wall. So I can show again while everyone's getting set up. I have my mat folded in half. the kind of, what is that, bent part is towards the wall. And then I have my 2 blankets. Rolled edges of the blankets are in line with that front edge of the mat. I'm taking that second layer of my mat and placing it on top of my blanket stack. But I have about 5 to 6 inches of space so that the mat is not fully covering the blankets. Now is the measurement away from the wall part. I'm gonna start kneeling with my toes pointing back behind me here. And I want where my shoulders will be, so that open end of the blanket stack, to be in line with my knees. I'm gonna pull my whole mat set up here a little bit farther back. And now you can see my knees are in line right with that open space on the blanket stack. Again, my toes are pointing back and just the tips of my toes are barely touching the wall here. So I have that whole length of my foot and my shin giving me the measurement of my distance from the wall. Okay. You can go ahead and set your space up. Toes come to the wall with the feet pointing back. Then you might have to, pull that mat exactly so that that top of the blankets come in line with the knees. Yep. And if you start to feel that it's too compressed, you can always create some more space. I'm going to show you how we'll get into this so you have an idea of what we're up to. Now, so far we've been using this strap to strap the front of the arms or to strap the tops of the arms in relation to the front of the body. This time we're going to use the strap to strap the upper arms behind us. Now we have a lot more bones in our upper back here when we consider the shoulder joint. So I actually want to loosen that strap up a little bit. A rough estimate is that if you pull the ends of the loop taut, you should be able to wrap it from one front of the shoulder to the other, and then you can even test it out. So I have it on my upper arm. I'm going to reach behind me, slide my other arm in, and you shouldn't feel like you're, totally stuck in this. You'll feel that the elbows are hanging underneath the shoulders. They are pulled back, but you shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, this is too much. What'll happen if it is a little bit too tight is you'll experience some numbing, tingling in the arms. Usually that comes from nerve entrapment. It just means that some of those nerves are potentially being smushed by fascia, muscle, or bone. Easy remedy, you just come out, wait till the numbing and the tingling goes away, and then loosen the strap and potentially try again. It's pretty normal if your shoulders are tight to feel this. It's absolutely normal, very, very normal, okay? So go ahead and come watch from the sides. I'm gonna show how we're gonna get up into this and kind of some things to consider. So you can see I'm pretty tight to the wall here, right? So I'm actually gonna start, my hips are all the way up against the wall. I'm tucking my shoulder underneath me here. My head is hanging off that blanket stack. I want just about an inch of space for the tops of my shoulders to roll back slightly. I'm gonna place this strap on one of my arms here, and I'm gonna hold it because I need it to be available to me once I lift my hips and my arms are behind me. Feet are coming to the wall. I'm driving my elbows down to lift my hips up here. Now, once I get to this point, I'm gonna tuck my shoulders underneath me. It's really as if I'm trying to come to the tops of my shoulders. Arms strap, elbows down. Maybe even hands come to the back. If you feel comfortable, you can do this. Coming out, unstrapping the arms, bringing the hips down. Now I'm going to slide myself off so that that edge of the blanket is in my upper back. Kind of creates just a lightly supported back bend, and we'll be here with the legs up the wall. Just resting for a few. Alrighty. Are there any questions or concerns coming up? Okay, let's go ahead and do. You stuck? You got it? And that might be a little tight. So I'd say maybe loosen it up a little bit. But I'll help too if anything happens while you're up. Okay, so you'll have your strap nearby. You'll start sitting really close to the wall so that when you roll onto your back, your hips are right up against the wall. Shoulders are on the blanket stack. There you go, Gray. And go ahead and place your strap now on one of your upper arms, and you're gonna hold the end of that loop in that same hand so you know where it is in space. Now, elbows are gonna press down into the floor right next to your side ribs. And as you dig your feet into the wall, lift your hips up. Go ahead and bend the knees, lift the hips up. Now, before you strap the arms, tuck the shoulders underneath you. Make sure you're on that blanket stack. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So go ahead and make the adjustment if you're sliding off. And you can even give yourself some more space. Yeah. If you're feeling that tightness in the shoulders, sometimes we may need to adjust our support. Great, you can scoot away from the wall with your shoulders actually. So we want the neck to be free from support. It's even a little bit more. It's just those tops of the shoulders. Yeah, that looks better. And then go ahead and strap the other upper arm once you've tucked the shoulders underneath you. Elbows press down, and as your elbows press down, go ahead and lift your hips up. As your elbows press down, try and lift your back ribs up off the floor. So that whole upper back area that's really close to the blanket stack, we're trying to lift up away from us. Now, I didn't give much detail on this, but as far as the position of the hands go, you'll start by scooping that flesh on your back. Palms come to your back, fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling, and eventually those pinky sides of the palms come in line with one another. But you're really trying to walk those heels of the palms down to your low ribs as much as you can. How you doing, Mary? Let's see here. Go ahead and bend the knees. Yeah. And you might have, the blankets might not be long enough because we want your elbows down. So let's try. Go ahead and lift your hips up. Elbows down, elbows down. Yeah. And rather than worrying about straightening your legs right now, try and bend your knees and lift your hips up with that. Yes, exactly. Yep. So I think what's happening is your blankets might not be long enough. Okay. And then the mat's pretty squishy, so I wonder if that's helping. Here, go ahead and use my setup. You don't have to kick the legs up overhead unless you're comfortable doing so. We're going to be here just for a few breaths though. This is a pose that you would hold for an extended period of time. Nice, Gray. Now, if you are up and you have your heels above your hips, I want you to tuck your tailbone towards your nose and press your thighs back to the wall behind you. Tailbone tucks forward, thighs press back. There should be quite a bit of weight on your elbows, and that weight on your elbows, much better, Gray, will help you accomplish that. Smooth, steady inhales and exhales. I know there's a lot of instruction that I've given to get into this point, but during these next few breaths, don't worry about going up quite yet. Get the tailbone, yes, and elbows tucking. Can even almost bring the elbows in a little bit more. Yep. And then just one leg at a time. Now tuck your tailbone forward. This comes forward and this goes up. So if you're gonna get up, that tailbone has to be able to come forward. Otherwise the hips, see how the hips are sinking? Do you feel that on your wrists? That won't help you get up. Yes, there has to be more lift up, 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 up. Do you mind if I help you? Okay. Try to bring that elbow in. Yeah. Exactly. Take a few breaths here. Notice where there's tension. See if you can soften the throat, soften the neck. Nice. Okay. And then one leg at a time, you'll go ahead and find the wall here. There you go. Good job. Yeah. You can go ahead and undo the strap behind you. Bring your hips down, and then you'll just slide a couple inches off that edge of the blanket stack so that your shoulders are on the floor, but you'll feel the edge of the blankets in your upper back. So great, go ahead and keep coming off. Shoulders will meet the floor. Good job. Taking a few breaths here. Way to go. I'd be lying if I said those poses were easy. At the same token, we were very prepared. We did a lot of shoulder stuff, helped creating some mobility. So a lot of that initial work in the beginning of class really kind of contributed to us being able to access that experience. Yeah, you can keep coming off, Kate, so the shoulders are all the way on the floor. There you go. There you go. Maybe gently lengthen your inhale and exhale. Notice how your body changes with your breath. As you tune into your body, notice if there's any particular sensations coming up. There's this balance with the mind and the body. Our mind can be very driven, and our mind can persevere through a lot in order to accomplish a goal that it sees fit to accomplish. Now, when we integrate some work with the poses, often our body might not be ready to go that far. Our mind is ready to do it, comprehends, ready to achieve, but really tuning in and finding out, is our body ready for that experience? And so this is a question to be asking yourself, especially as we've practiced some more challenging poses. Yes, we've prepared our shoulders and our neck. However, really tuning in and finding out, well, how did our body take that whole experience? Was it too much, too fast? Or was that window of challenge actually met with some receptivity in the body? Because sometimes when we push ourselves, our body will actually open up to that. And we get to new levels, get to new experiences. But trying to differentiate between the mind's drive and where the body is and the body's capability. It's very important here. Now we're just going to lay flat on the floor for a few moments. You can either press yourself completely away from the wall and just lay flat on the floor, or you're welcome to turn to your side, unfold your mat and your props, and rest comfortably. But the main thing is we would just want to take a few moments just flat on the floor, maybe some support underneath the head. After a few moments there, we'll prepare to move into a little bit of a meditation practice. So right now we're just tuning into the body, using that flatness of the floor to let go of any tension that might have risen through class, to tune in to any sensations that might be present at this time. So Sky, go ahead and come all the way away from the wall. Yeah, just to completely let the body go. Letting go of everything, everywhere. Reflecting on that current state and experience within your body. If you need to use the restroom at all, now's the time to do that. Start to transition into that meditation part of our class today. And so if there's any additional support that you would like to add to what you have right now, please feel free to bend the knees. You can roll to your side and get up. Maybe it's having a blanket underneath the head. You're welcome to place a rolled blanket underneath the knees. We do have some bolsters here in the classroom, so if you wanted to incorporate one of those, you're welcome to do that. So today's meditation practice will be a little bit more interactive, and I'm going to try to be very clear in my instruction, at least initially, since we're going to practice a technique called EFT, stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. This is called tapping. There's a great book called The Tapping Solution that goes quite in depth. And essentially the premise of the practice is that we're tapping on different meridian points within the body to just get a little bit more energy flow in different ways. And we're also going to tie this tapping in with different statements. You're welcome to say the statement out loud or say it in your mind. And so I'll explain a little bit more on that. But initially, I want to introduce you to these areas that we're going to be tapping so that while we're actually doing the practice, you don't have to worry about looking at me. So while you're laying down there, notice on your outer left hand, on that pinky side of the hand, we're going to call this the karate chop. And go ahead and tap there just a few times. That's the karate chop. So you're using your right hand, tapping on the outer left palm. That's going to be our first. So you can use your fingertips on your right hand to tap onto the outer. Yes, there you go, Cindy. So that's our first point that we're going to be working with today. The second one is going to be the inner eyebrow. And you can start on your right side. So we have two eyebrows, right? So you have two of these meridian points in this area. We're just focusing on the right side, right eyebrow, inner right eyebrow. Yeah, kind of closer to your nose. You can tap there a few points. And then the outer eyebrow, so at the tail end of the eyebrow, kind of near the temple of the skull, but closer to that eyebrow bone. You'll feel that orbital bone that sticks out that hosts your eye socket. That's our second or our third point today. Fourth point is going to be inner eye, but a little bit lower towards the cheek. Inner eye, but lower down towards the cheek. You kind of feel, sometimes we rub this area when we have some sinus pressure. We're just tapping there a few times to familiarize ourselves. Next point is right above the upper lip, right in that indent above the upper lip, below our nose. Just tapping there a few times. And then next point we'll be working with is the center of the chin. Just tapping on the center of the chin a few times. Just familiarizing ourselves with these meridian points. Our last point is on the right side, right in the middle underneath the collarbone. So it's kind of that upper outer right chest area, right under the collarbone. Just giving a couple taps. And when you tap, it almost feels like there's this bouncing that happens in the tap. So sometimes we might push like we're massaging, but for today it's this tapping like it's bouncing back almost. And then you can go ahead and rest. I just wanted to introduce those points to you so that when we begin practicing tapping, you're familiar and you don't necessarily have to look at me. And I can give you some instruction on where to tap, but you can keep the eyes and face soft. I want you to take a moment and think about some area of your life right now that maybe has a little bit more tension, or that you might identify as being a problem. And you can decide if it's something that's a pestering in your life. Maybe it's smaller. Maybe it's something really heavy that's really weighing on you. And as you identify this problem, this tension, maybe it's a emotional pain, maybe it's a frustration, really take a moment just to focus on that feeling. As we go through this tapping practice, I'm going to say a statement 2 times. The first time is for you to absorb and listen. The second time, you can join me either verbally or in your mind. You can repeat with me, but you'll hear me say these certain parts of the statement 2 times. Again, that second time, feel free to join me. Feel free to mimic me in your mind or even verbally aloud if that's something that you feel comfortable with. So we're going to start by tapping in that karate chop place. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem in my life, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem in my life, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I feel this tension and this problem in my life, I'm willing to accept all my feelings without judgment. Even though I feel this tension and this problem in my life, I'm willing to accept all my feelings without judgment. Now tapping into the inner eyebrow, this problem, this tension, really feeling that problem and that tension. Tapping into the outer eyebrow, this problem, this tension. Tapping underneath the inner eye, near the nostril, this problem, this tension. Really feeling that problem and tension as you do this. Tapping above the upper lip, this problem, this tension. Tapping the chin, this problem, this tension. Back to that karate chop position. Even though I'm feeling this problem and this tension, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this problem and this tension, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And then resting for a moment, just absorbing that. Noticing any feelings towards this problem, towards this tension of your choice. How are you feeling towards that now? Noticing if there's any tension in your body, anywhere in particular. As you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, try to let go, feeling your body surrender into the ground beneath you. Releasing any tension or gripping in the face or the eyes. Returning to tapping in that karate chop position. Even though I'm feeling this tension or this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I'm willing for this to change and to see things differently. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I'm willing for this to change and to see things differently. Tapping in the inner eyebrow, thinking about your problem, your tension, this problem, this tension. Tapping in the outer eyebrow, this problem, this tension that's weighing on me. Inner eye, down near the nostril, this tension, this problem that has my focus. Tapping above the upper lip, this problem, and this tension that I'm willing to change. Tapping on the chin, this problem, this tension. And back to that karate chop position. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And then you can go ahead and relax, placing the hands on the abdomen or hands on the floor. As you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, notice if there was any gripping that started to rise, either in the body or the face. And with every exhale, try to let go just a little bit more, even if it's just 1% more. In this final round of tapping, you'll start at that karate chop, tapping on the outer left palm. Even though I feel this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I feel this tension and this problem, I want to bring healing to this. Even though I feel this tension and this problem, I want to bring healing to this. Tapping on the inner eyebrow, this problem, this tension, I want to bring healing to this. Tapping on the outer eyebrow, this tension, this problem, I want to bring healing to this. Tapping near the inner eye, but a little bit lower towards the nostril and the cheek. This tension, this problem, I want to bring healing to this. Tapping above the upper lip, this tension, this problem. I want to bring healing to this. Tapping on the chin, this tension, this problem. I want to bring healing to this. Moving towards the collarbone on the right side. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I want to bring healing to this. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I want to bring healing to this. And moving back into that karate chop tapping position. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling this tension and this problem, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And you can go ahead and relax, resting the hands on the floor or on the abdomen. Taking a few deep breaths. Noticing how you're feeling towards that tension or that problem. As you exhale, letting go of any gripping in the body. See if you can let go of any tension that you might be holding emotionally or mentally. Maintaining that longer inhale, longer exhale for 3 or 4 breath cycles. Observe your body as an entire unit. Imagine your entire body surrounded, almost as if it could emit a white light. And as you gently lengthen your inhale and exhale, start to bring your attention to the skin. Use these last few breaths to let go any tension that might be rising subconsciously. And whenever you're ready, we'll start to come up by slowly bending the knees, reaching the right arm up and overhead. As you roll onto your right side, take a few breaths there. Feel free to take your time doing this, moving at your own pace. And whenever you feel ready to press yourself up to a comfortable seated posture, go ahead and do so. If you feel the need to continue lying down, please feel free to absorb that and take that in. And once you come up, bringing your mind to the room, trying to bring that calmness with you as you move, you can go ahead and grab your journal, any paper that you might have. You can sit with your props or feel free to sit at the table, whatever's most comfortable for you. So there's 4 different things that we'll journal on today. You can always journal as little or as much as you want. First is write down any reflections on how you felt about your problem and tension. So write down any reflections on how you felt about your problem or tension before the tapping practice and then after the tapping practice. So writing down any reflections on how you felt about your problem or tension before the EFT, the tapping practice, and then after. And second prompt, what am I ready to let go of or be free from? What am I ready to let go of or be free from? The third one, what do I want to choose to feel more of? What do I want to choose to feel more of? And the final one, what do I need to consider to feel more of this? What do I need to consider to feel more of this? Well, feel free to write as much or as little as you want. And as you finish, feel freedom to move about the room. you do happen to feel any, tension in the upper back that comes up, doing some twists, just allowing the upper back to round can help. So if you're feeling that now, or maybe as you notice you move on with your day, keep that in your back pocket. And if you're still journaling, feel free to take your time. For those ready to move on with your day, everybody, thank you for being here and taking the time to practice. You're welcome to help yourself to my essential oils that are up here too as you move on with your day. Make sure you drink lots of water today. Yeah, thank you for being here.